A heartfelt thank you to a Twin Cities police officer 16 years in the making after a homicide, kidnapping, and hostage situation. The remarkable reunion is next. I'd like to welcome Brooklyn Center retired police sergeant Frank Roth. Thank you so much for joining me, sir, to talk about all of this.
Hi, Liz. Thank you.
I was hoping to start with a bit of an overview. We appreciate your service so much. You served for quite a long time, I know, with a couple departments, but take us back. Tell us about your career and when you retired.
Well, I started in law enforcement in the Robbinsdale Police Department in 1982. I went to Brooklyn Center in 1991, and I retired from there in 2015. During that course of time, I was on the crisis negotiation unit, and I supervised it for about the last 20 years of my career.
And I know that's where this story stands out for you. A day you'll never forget. You've said May 26th, 2007. Just take us back, what you remember from that day.
Well, it was a weekend, and it was sunny. It was a nice day, and we had a call of a domestic, and the neighbor downstairs at an apartment building was reporting that there was some very hysterical screaming coming from the apartment upstairs. So two other officers and myself, we responded. The front door was open to the apartment. We walked inside, and there was a female that was laying in a pool of blood, gasping for air. Later, we found out it was Savannah Stevens. She'd been stabbed almost 80 times by a boyfriend, Jermaine Dickerson. We cleared the apartment to make sure nobody else was in there, the suspect, and then we just began to try to save her life. We put in an airway, and she was breathing. We kept her alive until the medics got there, and they got her to the hospital, but she passed away a couple hours later.
Talk about how this dramatic scene unfolds. I know an Amber Alert is issued.
Yeah, so it really was an evolving situation. So we had information from Kim that there was a relative that lived in the same apartment complex. So myself and two officers went to the apartment complex. We left one officer, went to the hospital with Savannah in the ambulance, Officer Carlson. And then myself and two other officers, we went over to the apartment that the relative was supposed to live in, and it was Jermaine's relative. And we spoke with a younger adult male and an older adult male, and neither one really were forthcoming with any information. But there was a young boy there, probably 6 years old. And when we befriended him and talked to him and asked him about his two little girls, he had said that Jermaine had been there, but he changed clothes and went to grandma's house. So we knew we were on a path, and then we were able to determine where grandma lived, and that was out in Brooklyn Park. We sent one more of our officers, as well as some Brooklyn Park officers, went to that address to see if they could locate Jermaine. And by the time they got there, Jermaine had washed up and left. So they had another crime scene there with the blood. And he had left the 6-year-old, but he had left there with his mother and Tiana. From there, he went to his aunt's house. And I mean, it was pretty evident that he was in flee mode. And he stole the aunt's truck and took Tiana with him. And then he had made references that he didn't want to live anymore, and Tiana wasn't going to live anymore neither. And that was the first time that we caught wind of the threats for the suicide and then for Tiana's safety.
So ultimately, this Amber Alert is issued, and this comes to a dramatic ending that is captured on camera over the 694 bridge in Fridley.
Yes, it was. As a matter of fact, we had the Amber Alert. Once we were able to put him in a vehicle, that made it possible to go on with the Amber Alert. But the process of putting an Amber Alert out is tedious. Our detectives and other agencies that were helping us made sure that we got that all taken care of. And during the course of the afternoon, we had reportings that Jermaine and the truck were down in Steele County. And as it worked out, he had been down there. He had been at a Motel 6, but then he turned around and came back. So the Amber Alert went out at about 4:15 in the afternoon, and we started getting hits on it right away. And then one of our officers came on the radio that he was chasing a vehicle. And you can imagine the how incredibly busy a police department is when you're looking for a suspect and a little girl. And lo and behold, he was actually chasing Jermaine in the stolen truck. And so he chased that up and around, and Jermaine got onto 694 going eastbound. And we got over the Mississippi River. He pulled over to the side and jumped out with Tiana and put both legs over the river side of the bridge and had Tiana, and was planning on taking his own life and Tiana's on that bridge.
Even all these years later, it's hard to look back at that video. You just hold your breath, but you're involved with the hostage situation, with the negotiations going on. But just explain that, what you're telling him.
Even talking to you right now, even though it was over 16 years ago, I still have those feelings come up. When I got there, Officer Tui, who had been chasing the vehicle, he was having a brief conversation with Jermaine, and then myself and a couple other negotiators, Peggy Broberg and Kim Potter, they assisted me on the bridge. And first I started talking with Jermaine, just letting him know, hey, let's slow this down. Let's take a step back here. Let's breathe. Let's make some rational decisions. Things have been going pretty fast for you and for us all day long. Nobody's going to get hurt here. Let's just make sure that we have a safe conclusion to what we're doing. During the first couple of minutes, I was just trying different things to see if there was anything I would say or do that I could get a reaction that was something that you could build on and just that you're moving forward. Tiana, she was crying as much like a 2-year-old baby would in a hectic situation with sirens and not knowing what's going on. And I asked him if I could give him a Kleenex for her. Grabbed a Kleenex and reached out, and he took it. And once he took it, that was probably when I felt that this was going to be successful, because I knew then that we had a minor breakthrough anyway. And he used the Kleenex to wipe her tears. And then she quit crying. And then we just kept talking. And he wanted to know how Savannah was. And I told him that she was all right, that she was a fighter. She was in the hospital. She was a fighter. And he wanted to go see her. So that became the most important thing to him at that time. And obviously the most important thing to us at that time was to getting Tiana out of his arms and off the bridge and into safety. We talked back and forth. He thought I was lying to him. I told him I have no reason to lie to you. I have nothing to gain here. He trusted me enough that I told him I'd bring him to the hospital to see Savannah if he would give us Tiana. And lo and behold, he did. And he released Tiana to me. And then I in turn gave her to her grandmother and 2 other officers. Then we went through the process of getting Jermaine off the bridge, laid him down, proned him out, handcuffed him. And then I brought him down to the hospital. Unfortunately, Savannah had passed away earlier that day, but that's where we informed him that Savannah was no longer alive.
What was that moment like for you, though, Frank, when Tiana, the baby in this situation, is handed over and is safe?
You have to be professional, but it was kind of a big deal. So it was very rewarding. It was rewarding for all the officers that were involved. We had just been to a homicide scene. We saw Savannah die, and she'd been stabbed almost 80 times. Did it make that okay? No, but it made it better. Because as police officers, you always want to make a difference. And I think as a group, we all felt that we had made a difference.
Well, absolutely. And I think it's incredible. You've thought about Tiana after all of this, and fast forward, talk about making a difference. But it's just an email that kind of arrives out of the blue just recently here to arrange a special meeting.
It's crazy. Obviously, any major cases that you deal with, even non-major things, just there's triggers all the time that bring you back to your law enforcement career. So I was golfing back in early May, and I happened to check my cell phone while I was on the golf course with my buddies, and I had a message from Tiana's adopted father. And as I read it, it was a thank you, saying how it had taken 16 years, and just wanted to say thank you, that Tiana was a prospering young lady, and she was graduating from high school, and she wanted to be a CNA, then to become a nurse. And it was, I welled up on the golf course. My buddies asked me what was the matter. And so I shared it with them, and they welled up too.
for good reason. And then this ultimately leads to a meeting. And I'm going to share a social media post recently that said, today I had the honor of meeting one of the officers who saved me May 26, 2007, from dangling over a bridge, that being retired Police Sergeant Frank Roth. After 16 years, I was finally able to figure out who had saved me and contacted him. He answered many questions and was such a sweet soul. Really just an incredible moment. But take us back. What was that like for you?
It was incredible. Uh, it was incredible. Tiana's a very beautiful young lady, and she's got a great future ahead of her. And just glad that, at that point in her life, is able to be there.
No secret that these have been some dark days for law enforcement, especially in Minnesota. But it sounds like just meeting Tiana has restored your faith a bit in protecting and serving, and just how much that profession matters.
Absolutely. The absolutely. The officers right now are, you know, they're good officers. They're good people, and that story just that doesn't get told. And it takes stuff like this where people can realize different. Cops do some good things, but let me tell you, the 99.9% of the cops out there, all they want to do is make a difference and help their communities. You know, anytime that you see, and there's been a lot of them lately, officers that are getting killed in line of duty, it isn't ironic that they are all cherished by their communities, because most of the officers in their communities are cherished. It just happened to be that the officer that died and now has their story told is amazing, and that's how most of these departments are. They have amazing officers.
I think that's a great message, though, that many of us should think about those little girls like Tiana. But thank you so much, Frank, for bringing this story to my attention and being willing to share it. We appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Liz. You do a great job.
Again, Frank Roth, thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you.
And we are lucky enough now to be joined by Tiana Brickman, who lives out of state now, I understand. But gosh, what a moment. I just was hoping to talk a little bit, Tiana, about why this was something that was so important for you to do, to reach out and meet now retired Frank Roth.
I think that it was one of the most amazing experiences I've had. Just finally being able to realize who had saved me and contacting them, and finally just meeting him and getting to talk and see what he had witnessed and all that.
And Frank did mention that you were adopted now. Just talk about how you're doing. You sound like really an amazing lady, and I know that your mom has been important throughout your life. There's many pictures of you holding a picture of her just actually recently at your high school graduation.
I'm doing good. I'm going to school to be a nurse. I have 5 siblings now. I live in North Carolina.
Talk about what you were able to share with Sergeant Roth during your meeting. I understand he was able to answer some questions for you, and it sounded like some healing, perhaps in a way, took place that day.
I just asked him about how it was talking with him while I was on the bridge, because in the video, once they were trying to get me down, I saw that he was the main negotiator, so I was asking him about that. I'm sure he knew all the right things to say, of course. I just think that it was great that he was there and he could say all the right things.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you credit him with saving your life, the reason you're here to this day.
Yes, I do.
And you mentioned wanting to be a nurse and helping people, which I think is remarkable as well. And you seem to be very outspoken about domestic violence. And talk about that where your inner strength comes from. I think it's hard for us to even imagine, the way that your life began.
Looking at this story, that it could help more people get help, not just stay in the same situation. Otherwise, things could happen to you, to your family, to others around you. I'm sure it was even traumatizing for Frank and other officers, and for people who saw the Amber Alert and stuff, who are probably wondering whatever happened and all this stuff. I think that more people should reach out, and if they can't get out that situation, then just know that there's someone who cares.
Certainly so many people care about you, Tiana. Thank you so much for being willing to share your story. And it's amazing to see how well you're doing. Thank you.
You're welcome, of course.
Again, Tiana Brickman. And that will do it for this episode of Liz Collin Reports. We'll see you next time.